The sun hung low over the dusty plains of Tau Ceti Prime, its orange glare softened by the atmospheric dome shielding the humanitarian outpost. The air shimmered with heat, and beneath the canopy of repurposed freighter hulls, children played in the dirt, unaware of the political tension coiled around the world like a fuse waiting to burn. Lieutenant Elias Voss knelt beside a cracked water condenser, sleeves rolled up, grease on his fingers, repairing it with the patience of someone who understood that survival sometimes depended more on clean water than on guns. His face bore the calm resilience of someone who had seen war and chosen another path. The scar across his left eyebrow hinted at past violence, but his eyes held no anger, only conviction. Around him, refugees from half a dozen species moved quietly, trusting him in a way few humans were ever trusted on alien soil. He had earned that trust with tireless work, by treating everyone with the same respect he'd once shown to wounded comrades. He wasn't here as a soldier. Not anymore. He'd traded his rifle for a toolkit and his rank insignia for a patch that simply read humanitarian. The outpost was a fragile thing, constructed from salvaged materials and maintained by an uneasy alliance of NGOs and peacekeepers. It existed by the grace of an old treaty and the reluctance of powerful factions to violate it openly. But the Kraggle Dominion had never respected fragility. They were predators by creed and conquest by design. In their doctrine, mercy was weakness, and weakness was to be erased. Elias stood and stretched, wiping sweat from his brow as a Kraggle child offered him a chipped canteen. He took it with a smile, nodding thanks in the child's language. Overhead, the sky rumbled. Engines. Fast. Close. He didn't run. Instead, he calmly passed the canteen back to the child and ushered them toward the shelter. From the north ridge, 3 Kraggle patrol skimmers descended, dark shapes cutting through the haze, their hulls scarred with old war paint. As they touched down in the middle of the courtyard, the laughter stopped. The refugees froze. A single voice issued from the lead craft. Lieutenant Elias Voss. Step forward. He did. Slowly. Hands visible. No weapon. No armor. I'm Elias, he said, projecting calm. You're entering protected space. These people are under Humanitarian Treaty 4C. You're in violation. The Kraggle captain stepped from the skimmer. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with ceremonial scars across his mandibles and a glare that carried centuries of cultural superiority. Behind him, 6 soldiers disembarked and fanned out through the outpost. They didn't speak. They didn't look at the civilians. The captain walked right up to Elias and stared at him as if inspecting a defective tool. You've been providing aid to fugitives. I provide aid to survivors, Elias replied. There's a difference. You are not qualified to determine such distinctions. I'm not the one breaking treaties, he said evenly. The Kraggle captain didn't respond. He struck Elias with the back of his clawed hand, sending him sprawling into the dirt. Gasps echoed from the gathered crowd. The children were gone now, huddled in the far shadows of the medical tent. Blood ran from Elias's mouth as he pushed himself up on a one knee. This is neutral ground, he said through gritted teeth. You won't get away with this. The captain gestured, and 2 soldiers hauled Elias to his feet. A third activated a recording drone. The camera locked onto Elias's face. A feed lit up on Kraggle military networks. Live. No masks. No denial. Let the galaxy see what happens to humans who forget their place, the captain said. Elias turned to face the camera, blood on his chin, defiant. If you do this, you'll start something you can't finish. The captain unsheathed his ceremonial blade and held it in full view of the camera. The weapon gleamed under the alien sun. This is not execution, he said. It is cleansing. The blade moved fast. The body dropped. The drone hovered, capturing the image of a silent outpost and a blood-stained courtyard. And then it transmitted. The footage reached Earth less than an hour later. It spread first through diplomatic back channels, then military networks, and finally, the public feeds. There was no voiceover, no commentary, just raw footage. A respected humanitarian kneeling, then falling, and a Kraggle captain walking away with disdain in his posture. The galaxy watched in silence. On board the orbital strike cruiser ESS Archangel, Captain Mira Voss stood in the Situation Room, watching the playback for the third time. No one else spoke. Her officers knew who the man was. The name Voss wasn't common. The facial resemblance was obvious. So was the connection. Mira stood still. Too still. Her eyes didn't leave the screen. Even when her brother collapsed. Even when the blade lifted again, dripping red. A voice behind her finally broke the silence. Commands asking for your response. Diplomatic protest or targeted response package. She didn't answer immediately. Her jaw tensed. The muscles in her arms flexed slightly beneath her uniform. She blinked once, slowly. What's the latest on Ghost Unit? Still disbanded. Technically. Reactivate them. The officer hesitated. They'll ask why. Tell them it's a humanitarian response. He swallowed and nodded. Understood. As he turned to go, Mira spoke again. Her voice was cold steel, honed sharp. No protests. No threats. No debates. He paused. Captain, if they want to call it war, let them. I just want them to understand what they did. Alone again, Mira watched the screen fade to black. Her brother's final expression remained burned behind her eyes. Not fear, not confusion, but something that hurt more. Disappointment. She remembered teaching him how to shoot when they were children, how to stay calm under fire. He never liked guns. He said his weapon would be compassion. She had laughed. Now she wasn't laughing. She moved to the armory and keyed in her code. The case unlocked with a hiss. Inside, her field armor, untouched for nearly a year, and beneath it, a small metal tag. She picked it up. Elias's name etched into it. The same tag that would soon be carved into more walls than the Craggle could imagine. Mira slid it into a pouch, then reached for her rifle. The fight hadn't begun yet, but they'd started it, and she would end it. The atmosphere inside the stealth corvette Valkyrie was silent, taut with anticipation. Its hull shimmered in deep space stealth mode, reflecting nothing, absorbing all. Mira Voss stood alone in the darkened deployment bay, her armor reconfigured to black ops specs, matte and angular, stripped of all insignias. Each plate whispered violence. A faint hum vibrated through the deck, plasma coils charging, engines in low burn. Outside, Tau Ceti Prime grew nearer. The same planet where her brother had died beneath an alien blade. Her breath was steady, but everything beneath it was fire. She had watched the footage hundreds of times. She had memorized the names of the Craggle unit, their commander, the patrol's deployment schedule. None of it was classified. They hadn't hidden what they did. They didn't think they needed to. Now, they would learn. The door behind her hissed open. A team of 4 entered, each one silent, their movements precise. Ghost Unit, Mira's old team. The ones pulled from deep cover, off the record, out of retirement if needed. No ranks here, just capability. Kai, demolitions and infiltration, dropped a satchel on the bench, unloading compact plasma charges and directional breachers. Her dark hair was cropped short, eyes sharp and unblinking. They built their base inside a canyon network, limited egress. We blocked the exits, they burn. Yarrow, the sniper, had already taken position in the forward scope nest. He didn't speak. He rarely did. His scope linked directly to Mira's HUD, feeding her real-time terrain models of the Craggle outpost. Jex, recon, and psychological ops studied the Craggle broadcast feeds on a tablet, running his fingers over each segment. They're laughing, he said softly. The footage of Elias is being used in their recruitment vids. Their commander's name is Zur, decorated 4 times for suppressing insurgencies. Known for cruelty. Mira nodded once. Cruelty doesn't shield him. Jex looked up. This isn't a sanctioned op. They catch us, it's war. Mira's voice was quiet but resolute. It already is. The plan came together in silence. Every movement practiced, nothing wasted. Kai would set the perimeter charges. Yarrow would provide long-range overwatch from the southern ridge. Jex would breach the comms array and scramble any emergency signals. Mira would lead the infiltration team through the north, past sentry lines, into the command center. No survivors. No trail. Just a message. When they landed on the moonlit cliffs overlooking the Craggle base, Mira was the first to step out. The desert wind cut sharp through the canyon, carrying with it the faint hum of generators and the low thrum of alien speech. Lights dotted the ravine like a chain of dying stars. They moved without a word. Kai split off, heading west with a satchel of micromines. Mira barely heard her boots on the stone. Jex moved with her, cloaked in a refractive field. Their forms dissolved into the rock. Yero's voice clicked into her comms. Sentries. 2. Eastern wall. 1 smokes. Other watches. Mira signaled with 2 fingers. Jex flanked wide. She approached like shadow. The sentries didn't hear her. One's head snapped back, silent and clean. The other turned just in time to meet Mira's blade, thin, silent, precise. She lowered the body gently. No alarms. No echoes. They advanced. Inside the base, Craggle soldiers lounged under pale lights, laughing, playing combat sim holograms. Most were unarmored, off-duty, unprepared. Mira noted every face, every insignia. She scanned for Zur. Not here. She tapped her comm Jex. Comms. 30 seconds. Outside, Kai's voice crackled. Charges planted. Route sealed. Mira moved to the officer's quarters. Inside, a table bore a printed image. Her brother's execution frozen mid-frame. His eyes still open. His expression calm. A Craggle captain stepped into view, startled. His mouth opened to bark a challenge. Mira didn't let him finish. Her knife found his throat. He dropped, twitching. Jex entered behind her. Signal tower is dark. No words getting out. Then we begin, she said. From the ridge, Yero's first shot cracked through the canyon like the hand of judgment. A Craggle guard collapsed near the barracks. Panic rippled through the compound. Troops scrambled, unarmed, shouting for orders. Doors opened. Lights flared. Then the mines triggered. Kai's traps sealing the exits and fire. Mira led her team through the chaos. Each room they entered was cleared with brutal precision. Officers died clutching datapads. Engineers never reached their alarms. Blood soaked the walkways. In the command center, Commander Zur stood before a console, shouting into a dead comm line. His bodyguard raised a weapon. Yero took him through the skull. Zur turned as Mira entered. His expression shifted, recognition, then disbelief. You, he said. The sister. She didn't respond. She walked forward slowly, her steps deliberate. Zur backed away, eyes darting. We warned him. He crossed the line. We don't tolerate. Mira cut him off with a shot to the knee. He dropped, screaming. She holstered her weapon and pulled something from her pouch. A small tag. Bloodstained. Bent. Elias's dog tag. She threw it at Zur's chest. He stared, trembling. You're just one soldier. You think this will change the war? Mira leaned close. No, I'm not here to change the war. I'm here to start it. She turned as Kai entered. Prep the core. We're leveling the site. 10 minutes later, the compound was rigged with fusion charges. As the team withdrew, Mira stood once more in the courtyard where the Craggle had filmed her brother's death. She placed the second dog tag in the dirt. Then she took out her knife, carved one word into the wall behind it. Elias. They left without a trace. Behind them, fire swallowed the compound. The sky lit up. Cameras on distant satellites captured only a brief pulse of white light, then silence. Far away, in the heart of the Craggle Dominion, confusion spread like a virus. One of their most secure bases had vanished. No survivors. No distress signals. No clear explanation. But someone, something, had written a name on the wall before the blast. The same name from the broadcast. The same human they had executed. And now, even in victory, they began to feel something alien. Fear. Dust and ash still lingered in the atmosphere above the ruins, drifting in gray spirals across the canyon's hollowed skeleton. From orbit, the crater once known as Outpost 9 looked like a wound carved into the planet's skin. Nothing moved. Nothing answered. No signal. No heat signatures. The Craggle Dominion marked it as a systems failure, a malfunction, perhaps sabotaged by local insurgents. The truth was too raw, too unsettling to speak aloud. Inside the black chamber of the command vessel Ulzenreth, Admiral Vikros paced before his advisors, his claws clacking rhythmically against the polished stone. The footage retrieved from deep surveillance drones showed only fragments, shadows flickering through the fog, flashes of heat, and a name scorched into Duracrete, Elias. A human name. A message. This wasn't a rebellion, Vikros said, voice low and graveled. This was precise, calculated, surgical. They were ghosts. Another Craggle murmured. No alarm. No escape. They hunted our men like prey. Vikros stopped pacing. Then it's war. The word dropped heavy in the chamber, but no one opposed it. No one dared. On the dark side of Tau Ceti's third moon, Mira Voss reviewed her next target. Outpost 11, a forward command hub nestled within a mountain fortress. According to intercepted traffic, Commander Zuer's replacement had been dispatched there, a strategist named Traken, known for his ruthlessness and rigid doctrine. The base housed over 200 Craggle soldiers, 22 officers, a fleet of gunships, and a planetary defense grid. It wasn't a raid this time. It was an army. Mira didn't hesitate. We hit them before they solidify, she said, voice clear, steady. Before they convinced themselves the first strike was a fluke. We remind them what it means to draw human blood. Her team listened without comment. Ghost Unit didn't need fiery speeches. They needed plans. Kai mapped the ingress routes with cold efficiency. Jex cracked the encryption, shielding the base's defense perimeter. Yarrow, silent as always, dialed in the firing lines from orbital topography. They worked in unison, precise and unshaken. But beneath the surface, each of them carried the memory of Elias. Not because they knew him, but because he represented everything the Craggle didn't understand. Humanity didn't forget. They inserted under cover of electromagnetic interference from a nearby storm front. Thunder cracked in the distance as the dropship descended in stealth mode, its frame hugging the ridgeline like a bird of prey. Mira touched down first, her boots silent on the gravel. Wind hissed through the ravine, cloaking their movement. Each step forward was measured, purposeful. Every shadow was a veil. Every corner, a decision point. Inside the mountain, the Craggle moved with artificial confidence. Traken had enforced curfews, doubled patrols, tripled drone surveillance. He believed in layers of order, not adaptability. That made him vulnerable. Kai moved through the ventilation shaft systems, placing charge nodes at structural weak points. She moved like liquid shadow, bypassing laser grids with breathless grace. Jex seeded false sensor echoes into their perimeter defenses, ghost images of animals and glitches. Meanwhile, Yarrow watched them all from above, his scope merging with Mira's HUD, a pair of unseen eyes that never blinked. The first strike came swift and quiet. A gunship patrol team disappeared from the scanner grid. Moments later, another tower's feed went black. Traken noticed. He ordered a lockdown. Mira smiled behind her mask. That was exactly what she wanted. As doors sealed and soldiers clustered in defensive zones, Kai triggered the charges in the northwest support column. The explosion wasn't massive, but it was surgical. It collapsed the barrack ceiling, sealing off half the unit and cutting off power to the outer batteries. Chaos rippled through the base. The Craggle weren't untrained. They reacted fast, regrouping, sweeping the halls, but they moved against ghosts. Mira and Jex advanced through smoke-cloaked corridors, dispatching targets with swift, silent precision. Mira's blade moved with deadly intent, always toward the officers, the tacticians, the ones who might understand what was happening. Internal sensors reset, Jex said into her comms. They think there's a breach team of 20. Let them. The deeper they went, the more Mira noticed something beneath the Craggle discipline. A tremor. A hesitation. Some had seen the footage. Some knew the name. Elias. They whispered it like a curse. Their movements slowed at strange sounds. Their gazes lingered in the dark too long. Fear had entered them, not because they'd been wounded, but because they didn't understand how they were being hunted. Yarrow's voice crackled in her ear. Traken. Level 4. Command nest. For guards. Mira signaled. Jex peeled away toward the generator relay. She climbed the emergency access tube, metal rungs slick with condensation, every heartbeat hammering toward the mission's core. She breached level 4 with a flash grenade and smoke screen. The guards opened fire blindly, the corridor filling with plasma bursts. Mira rolled low, flanking right, and dropped 2 with headshots. The third screamed, and the fourth raised a plasma blade. She cut him down mid-swing. Traken stood inside the nest, armor gleaming, pistol drawn. He was taller than Zur, broader but slower. His aim faltered when he saw her. I'm the consequence. She fired once, the round taking him through the gut. He staggered back, dropping the weapon. Mira approached, keeping her gun steady. Why, he gasped. One life, one human. Mira tilted her head, voice low and icy. You don't get it. You never will. She raised her knife. No more names, she whispered, and ended him. Behind her, the base began to shudder. Jex's sabotage had triggered a chain reaction in the coolant systems. Sirens wailed. The walls bled fire. Mira didn't run. She walked calmly through the collapsing structure, firelight dancing across her armor. Her team regrouped at the extraction point. No words were exchanged. They lifted off just as the mountain erupted behind them, a gout of flame and steel marking the end of another piece of the Kragel war machine. Later, aboard the Valkyrie, Mira sat alone in the dim silence, watching the debris field spiral in low orbit. She opened her brother's last message, recorded weeks before his death, a birthday greeting filled with laughter, bad jokes, and love. She didn't cry. She had no tears left. Instead, she whispered into the dark, "It's not over." And far away, in every Kragel outpost, the same fear returned. The fight wasn't stopping. It had only just begun. The transmission came through static and dread. A grainy image filled the Galactic Command's High Council chamber. What remained of Outpost 11, now a charred husk clinging to the side of a broken mountain. The footage was stitched from drone fragments and thermal recon. Even with data degradation, one word was visible, scorched into the stone near the ruins. Elias. No signature. No demand. Just a name. High Lord Makhol leaned back from the display, claws flexing restlessly over the armrest of his throne-like chair. He had governed 3 solar sectors with iron authority for a century, yet his voice was tight. We are under siege. The other counselors offered nothing but silence. They don't want territory. They don't broadcast conditions. There are no negotiations. Just destruction. Human revenge. Another rasped, half in disbelief, half in fear. We provoked one of them, and now they come without cease. Not one, Makhol said darkly. 4, maybe more, but they fight as one mind. A hive of vengeance. No, worse, another murmured. They fight like they've already buried us. Far beyond the political walls of Kragel power, in the shadows of a drifting satellite graveyard orbiting a forgotten moon, Mira Voss studied the map of enemy infrastructure. The Kragel were pulling back, abandoning exposed outposts, consolidating near their core systems. Not out of strategy, out of fear. Every time ghost units struck, they left no survivors. No explanations. Only a name. Still, Mira wasn't satisfied. She wasn't finished. She sat across from Yarrow in the dim chamber of the Valkyrie, the hum of idle engines pulsing through the floor. He said nothing, as usual, just watched her. She looked older now, not in the lines of her face, but in the stillness of her posture, the silence in her eyes. Grief, forged into function. We're near their border citadel, Kai said from the control deck. Fleet command, diplomatic hub, protected by full planetary shield, orbital guns, and a standing force of 10,000. No way in without half a fleet. Mira didn't look up. We won't need a fleet. Jex leaned forward from the shadows, data slate in hand. I've found a hole in their scheduling. One diplomatic convoy comes and goes once every 30 days. 3 ships. One passes through the civilian docking array. They'll scan us, Kai warned. Not if we're already on the inside, Mira said. Not if we replace one of their delegates. Jex grinned, sharp and humorless. That's a death sentence. They've already sentenced us. There was no vote. No need for approval. The mission wasn't about orders anymore. It was obligation, shared across each of them like a buried wound. Mira's team began to prepare. The operation took 6 days. They intercepted the diplomatic ship in a blind field near a neutron star, disabled it with an EMP net, boarded, and neutralized the crew with precision. Mira took the identity of a Kraggle cultural liaison. The others assumed support roles. Their armor was replaced with woven robes, skin painted with reactive polymer mimicry, and their biosigns encoded with false readings. By the time the convoy reached the Kraggle capital's civilian array, they passed undetected. What followed was not a siege. It was an execution. Mira entered the central chamber of the citadel with quiet steps and an unreadable expression. Her delegation passed through 6 security checks. No alarms. No suspicion. The Kraggle security assumed the same weakness they'd always attributed to humans. Softness. Restraint. Predictability. The detonation began in the underlayers. Jex's proximity virus corrupted the defense AI. Yarrow, posted in a maintenance shaft high above the dome, began his final overwatch. Kai seeded chemical disruptors into the environmental systems. Mira kept walking. She found the Hall of Records. An ancient archive where the names of Kraggle military victors were etched in obsidian. She stared at the wall, calm. She took out her knife and added one more name. Elias. The alarm screamed 30 seconds later. Doors locked. Systems failed. The citadel lights dimmed into flickering emergency red. Guards scrambled, shouting over garbled comms. But it was already too late. The explosions were perfectly timed. First the barracks, then the defense towers, then the command bunker. One by one, the Kraggle power structure collapsed inward. Mira and her team moved through the chaos. Shadows inside shadows, vanishing before pursuit could form. By the time reinforcements arrived, half the capital was ash. They left nothing behind but one final message, transmitted directly to the Kraggle High Council's emergency channel. Mira stood in frame, her face exposed for the first time. Her voice was calm, colder than the vacuum between stars. You killed one of us. Her eyes were steady. Final. Now none of you are safe. Then the screen went black. The war changed. The Kraggle tried to retaliate. They deployed fleets, doubled their patrols, offered bounties on human heads. But there were no enemies to find. Only dead officers, ruined ships, abandoned outposts with names carved into metal like curses. Elias. Humans never declared war. They never needed to. Because what burned across the Kraggle Empire wasn't an army. It was memory. It was justice shaped like fire and silence. And somewhere, always out of reach, walked a woman in black armor with nothing left to lose. Mira Voss, sister to a murdered aid worker, weapon of grief, would never stop. Not until the Kraggle forgot what victory felt like. Not until they understood what it meant to take a single human life. And what it cost. In the quiet heart of Earth, beneath a grove of tall cedar trees, a stone marker sat undisturbed. Elias Voss, peacemaker, beloved, avenged. Beside it, another marker waited, blank. One day, perhaps, her name would join his. But not yet. The fight wasn't over. It wouldn't stop. Not until the stars themselves remembered.